So we're going to start off every share as we have since Sukkot with our biggest weapons we have at our disposal. Give some tzedakah. If anyone has a pushka in front of them, or to give in any of the many online tzedakah apps, it's tzedakah. Pass around the pushka. There's coins on top. Anyone needs this? There's coins on top. There'll be if anyone needs coins. $4 bills. And we'll say 2 chapters of Tehillim. Chapter 20 and chapter 150. Lam natsayach mizmor LaDavid gan chadinav yem sarai sagav chashem el Yaakov ishtachaz chamikodesh mitzion yisadaka yiskar kol mechasecha vaylos vayadash nesala yitem lecha chilvavecha v'chalatzas v'yimalei Niran and Avishua Secha v'shem Eloheinu nidgal imali adinoi kol mishalesecha ata yadati ki yeshi adinoi mashicha yanei umishmei kadshay b'gvuras yesha yeminoi eile b'rechev eile b'asus v'anachnu b'shem adinoi Eloheinu naskir hey makaru v'nafalu v'anachnu kamnu v'nisai God adinoi yeshi melech yaneinu v'yoim kareinu. I want to say chapter 150 with the tzachim. We're going to praise Hashem. Hallelujah, hallelujah, al b'kadshay, hallelujah, b'kiya uzay, hallelujah, b'gvaraysav, hallelujah, karav gudlay, hallelujah, b'seika shayfer, hallelujah, b'neva v'chinar, hallelujah, b'sayfu machal, hallelujah, b'minu v'ugav, hallelujah, b'tziltzil neshama, hallelujah, b'tziltzil serua, kol neshama, hallelujah, hallelujah. If you look at today's Chumash, I know I got to hear some of it together with Reb Pinchas as he on the way here. Today's Chumash that we learned, Shishi, the 6th Aliyah of Parshas Noach, which lists off all the descendants of Noach who were ancestors of nations, and it lists off all the lists of all these 70 nations, and you have. It says over here, who are the ones who lived in the land of Israel? Right. And it says Canaan was one of the sons of Noach. One of the sons of Chaim was the son of Noach. Kushim Mitzrayim Fut Canaan. Canaan gave birth to Tzidon, Ches, Yevusi, Ermoiri, Gergashi. All these nations descended from him. Chivi, Arki, Sini, Arvadi, Chamasi. Chamasi sounds familiar? Yeah, exactly. Hamas nation as well comes from Cham. And it says, Vayihi Gvul HaKanani Mitzidon, and the border of Canaan went from Tzidon. Tzidon is in the city called Tzidon, it's in Lebanon. Boacha Gerara Ad Aza. And they camped and all the way coming to Gerar. Gerar is in the area of Gaza today, the ancient Plishtim of Avimelech. Ad Aza until Gaza. And then right away, which nations, which cities do they have? Sdoim, Hamoira, Anma, Tzvayim, Adlasha. So all these evil, wicked cities. This Bayacha is a noun. It approached Gaza. Means all the nations, these nations, which were listed off, so many of them, they only approach Gaza. You might say, look how many, Arabs we have in Gaza. Millions of them. No need to worry. Look in today's Chumash. All these nations, Yevusi, Ermoiri, Gergashi, each one is a nation. And they only camp ad Aza until Gaza, but Hashem took all of it and gave it as a present to us.
And there's a pasuk in actually of Sefer Malachim, which actually says it's for one of the kings of Israel.
Yeah.
Kings of Yehuda. Went into actually Gaza and crushed actually the bleach thing.
Mirz Hashem, it happened again. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, it talks about David by Tzikalog, yes. Just fixing this thing over here. So we're going to continue now. You have in front of you all a sicha, a new share, and it's in English. We're going to go through some of it over here online, so those online could see as well. And what we're going to do is we're not going to learn the entire thing. There's a lot what to learn. And in the meantime, I want to go through some other aspects and ideas of the Parsha of Noach. And we'll be taking not just from sources of Chassidus, but other interesting sources as well. And maybe it'll change up a little bit today. We'll do a lot more Medrash today. Medrash is the part of Torah that was not written in the Torah. A lot of the Torah was given over orally. And Medrash is actually some of the first parts of Torah to be written down. Even before Mishnayos, Medrash was written down. Medrash Rabbah, Medrash Tanchuma, Mechilta, Sifra, and Sifri. All these different Midrashim were even written down before Mishnayos was written down. Except that it wasn't. These are Medrash more explaining the ideas of the Torah, explaining more depth in the Torah. So we're going to learn from some Medrash. We're going to learn from Sichas of the Rebbe. We're going to learn from Dr. Tversky, Al Vashalom, which I'm sure most of you remember him over here.
He was a direct descendant of the Tversky family, as well as actually
He was a descendant of the Alter Rebbe and the Mittler Rebbe, and the Nachum Chernobler. The Chernobler is correct, a relative of Dovi's, of course, and a relative of mine from the Chernobler side. This Parshas Noach is a very unique Parsha. And as a matter of fact, you have in this week's Parsha a person who lived throughout the most generations of any other person that's recorded. There are two people who lived throughout 15 generations that are recorded that they lived throughout that time. Other people we know perhaps they lived that long as well. Kalyahu Navi, obviously. There's Sarach Bas Asher. But certain people who it says clear out in the Torah how long they lived. One of them is actually Yitzchak Avinu. Yitzchak, he lived to be 180, but he was born during the lifetime of Shem, the son of Noach. And Yitzchak got to see, there were 9 generations from Shem, 10 generations from Shem until Yitzchak. And Yitzchak, he was born 42 years after Noach passed away. And he lived all the way to see the grandchildren of Yehuda. Yehuda's grandchildren, Yehuda, the son of Yaakov. So Yitzchak's son was Yaakov, his son was Yehuda, his son was Peretz, whose sons were Shelah, Chetzron, and Chamel, and Yitzchak got to see them. He lived throughout 15 generations. At the end of this week's Parsha, we also have Shem himself. Shem, the son of Noach. Noach had 3 sons, Shem, Cham, and Yefes. And Shem lived, he got to see all the generations from the time of Methuselah, the longest recorded person to ever live, 963 years.
969.
969 years, right? Correct. That's his. And he went from the times of Methuselah, which was Shem's great grandfather, the father of Noach, father of Lamech, his father of Methuselah. And he got to meet Yaakov Avinu. He got to meet Yaakov. Shem passed away when Yaakov was 50 years old. Yaakov Avinu learned in the yeshiva of Shem and Ever. So after he ran away from his father's house, it was the yeshiva of Ever. We discussed this, remember, in Masechta Megillah. And he also, Shem got to live for 15 generations. Now, anyone here like music, classical music? So you have the conductor who runs the entire orchestra. And sometimes you'll also have choirs. And you'll have a very large crowd and fill it in an audience. It could be sometimes audiences of thousands and even bigger than that. And there's one person at the center of all of this. All the people coming, they become excited or they become sad, they become hopeful, all based on the noise, on the sounds that are coming out of this orchestra. It's all coming down to the conductor who's conducting it and putting all the pieces together. However, there's so many pieces, and every single one of them is necessary to conduct this huge orchestra, to make it beautiful, to make it sound good. And every detail is part of this beautiful harmony that's out there. And Hashem created the world in a similar way. Hashem is the conductor of the orchestra. More than that, he's the one who makes the orchestra, continues to build it every moment, continues to design, build, create the world at every moment. He made infinite amount, billions, trillions of details, the heavens, the earth, and everything that goes on in the world. And everything has a task, everything has a job. And there's one conductor who's conducting it all, which is Hashem, who's conducting this humongous, beautiful orchestra. And in the beginning, Hashem made everything perfect. He put Adam and Rishon to be in Gan Eden to serve Hashem there. And everyone praised Hashem. Now, let's say in this conductor, this orchestra, some people in the orchestra for some reason came in a bad mood that day. Other ones on the way coming to work, they stopped by the bar and had an early happy hour, and when they're trying to blow the trumpet, out comes a corrupted sound. And let's say the guy who's supposed to make the lighting doesn't show up. And the one who runs the temperature in the place, by mistake, put on the heat in the summer instead of the air conditioner. Sometimes things look like they're going wrong. Now, if you're a member of the audience, when everything's going wrong, you're not going to have a lot of simcha, a lot of joy from this type of orchestra, from this type of show. Hashem, he made the world and gave everything the capability to serve Hashem perfectly. And when, unfortunately, throughout the generations, people started serving idols, forgetting about the creator of the world, acting in ways of Hamas, ways of robbery. So then, Hamas, yes. I'm not sure what it means in Arabic, but I definitely know what it means in Hebrew. And all right, but you mentioned Hamas. God forbid to think that Hamas is the terrible ones and the PLO are the good ones. God forbid to think so. Not the Hamas, not the Hezbollah, not the PLO. And the truth is, not anybody from these nations which were mentioned in today's Chumash. Not them, our friends. Don't say one is good and one is not good. And unfortunately, our enemies see it. I actually spoke to an Egyptian person yesterday, not Jewish, he's a doctor. And he confirmed this. I'm sure Yossi could confirm this as well. And that part of the world, what people look at in others are signs of weakness. As soon as there's any sign of weakness, that's when they pounce.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they look for. I think it's universal, but especially in that region of the world. The people who live in that area of the world are like that.
So they respect the Kashif force. Essentially,
it's only language you actually understand this force.
Yeah, because what happens is that they look upon if you're being nice to them, oh, you're big issue weak.
Correct. Right. They look at weakness as a sign to pounce. And trying to show weakness, trying to show you're vulnerable in such a situation is terrible, even if you don't have the strength, and especially that we have the strongest army in the world, with the strongest ally, we have Hashem on our side. And there's absolutely nothing to fear. And every single Jew who lives in Eretz Yisrael could point out to you many instances where there's things are miraculous, things that should not have worked out, and it's literally only the miracles of Hashem that things work out in a much greater way than it is. So the world becomes corrupt, and Hashem, whose audience and the Malachim become very sad. Audience is not happy, so to speak. This is a very low way of speaking, but that's to bring out the point. Hashem made the world, one world, but with 10 sayings. Let there be light, let there be land, let there be man. And in every single one of the 10 sayings of Hashem, there was corruption. There's halacha, there's a certain type of grain called zunin. Zunin are mezonos. It's a grain that grows in the ground, that's mezonos. And one of the explanations of what zunin is that the world was so corrupt that even the earth did not listen to Hashem before the Mabul, before the flood. And they would plant wheat, out will come a different type of grain called zunin. It wasn't listening, it wasn't doing its proper, its task was given to by Hashem. By the Mabul, by the flood, many things changed. But especially the season started coming, right? The world stopped being beautiful and tropical. Rabbi Eisen was saying how there was so much water that the earth tipped on its axis. But again, that's Rabbi Eisen to explain. But many layers of the ground were taken away. In many ways, the klipa of the world was taken away in many ways. The world never became as bad as it was back then. Think about how bad it became, how bad the world ever was. It was even worse before the time of the Mabul, time of the flood.
That's scary.
Correct. Now, the early generations were all living off of Hashem's chesed, Hashem's kindness. People lived a very long life. And not just that, there was no thorns that would grow. You would plant and things would grow very quickly, big fruits. People did not have to work hard. It never got too hot, it never got too cold.
The pregnancy was very short then, right?
Correct. So all these 10 generations, they received such blessings from Hashem, kindness from Hashem. That's why we have in Hoidul Hashem on Shabbos 26 psukim, because there are 26 generations until the Jews received the Torah from creation of the world, where the world was not deserving to thrive, to be in existence. Only after 26 generations, Shalom Aleichem Mike, thank you for joining. Only after 26 generations did the Jews receive the Torah. So for 26 generations, the world lived off the kindness of Hashem. And being that Hashem's kindness is immense, people lived a very long life. Now, there's different generations from the time that Adam was created until later on, until the Mabul. There are 10 different generations. Now, before the Mabul, before the Great Flood, there's many different civilizations, by the way, not connected to each other. They all have this tradition of a Great Flood. One of the proofs that these people bring for the Torah is if you need a proof. Now,
Hatzvi-Bais is actually 26.
correct. That's why in the Siddur there's a Yud with the comments after the pasuk, the 10th pasuk, and after the 15th pasuk is a Hey. Yeah, you're supposed to have in mind.
And so what happens is that I guess you had Hatzvi-Bais, the Hashem's attribute of mercy. Right?
Correct. Once a Torah was given, then the world finally was able to breathe. You could say a sigh of relief. The Zohar says like this: during the time of Adam's grandson, his name was Enosh. They were very close to the time of creation. Adam Rishon himself knew many secrets of creation. There's a sefer called Sefer Azil HaMalach. It's a tradition that Adam Rishon received many parts of that sefer from an angel, a malach called Razil, as he's leaving Gan Eden, as he's being chased out of Gan Eden.
You can get it and you should have it in your house. It's a sagula, you should not have a fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the time of Enosh, people were full of wisdom, divine wisdom, but unfortunately they used it to do kishuf, to do things which are against, to rebel against Hashem. They thought we are so powerful, we could do these supernatural things. And people would act in a very negative way. What were the sins of the generation of the Mabul, of the flood? Our sages say they transgressed every possible affair there is to transgress. They served idols, Vayda Zara. They were extremely immoral. You know, there's descriptions of some festivals they would hold where people would snatch each other's wives, and it was a normal thing. There was a lot of murder going on.
Just like now.
But the reason why Hashem said he wants to destroy the world was because of one Avera, sin, which is Gezel and Chamas, stealing, and stealing in open, stealing brazenly. Hashem in the Torah, it does not mention any of the other sins, only stealing Chamas in open. Because in beginning, usually when Hashem punishes a person, Hashem first punishes their possessions, Hashem has mercy, then punishes maybe their health. Only the person itself is last. When a person steals, you have taken something that you didn't work on and taking it away from someone who worked very hard for it. Now, the person who was stolen from, he doesn't have what to have himself. He goes out and steals from somebody else. So stealing in open was something which Hashem sealed their fate. The people of the generation of the Mabul, they wanted to do certain things. They wanted to free themselves from what we call maybe guilt, any feeling of fear or awe of Hashem. And they wanted to say that everything runs in a natural manner. And according to nature, called Alam Gvar, whoever is strongest, he's the one who's in charge. He's the one who wins. So therefore, we're going to wipe away, destroy any weak people, and only have what they would call in Germany, Übermenschen. Right? Übermenschen. We have only the elite of the crop. And although they had beautiful weather the whole year round, and the only reason they wear clothes was for tznius, for modesty, they would not. They would take off any semblance of modesty. They would walk around without any clothes whatsoever. The men, the women, they were not embarrassed of each other, and they would keep their beds out in the public in order to show on purpose that, listen, this is a natural thing. No one should be ashamed of anything. They had no shame of Avera, no shame of each other, no shame of sin. And those few people which held of Hashem, which went in the ways of Hashem, didn't follow everything else that was going on, they tried protecting upon themselves. So what would the judges or the people of those times do? They would murder them. They would kill them. They would steal their wives from them. They would mock them.
There's a saying, actually, the judges would do it, right?
Correct.
Wow, some judges.
And the Medrash talks about many manners of very low and depraved things which would go on at that during that time. Another thing they would do is that people want to have multiple wives, but they want some wives only for enjoyment and not for children, and they would make it that they were, with the means they had back then, that their wives could not have any children, and and other ones, or if a child was born, they would drown the child.
Oh,
I'm saying there was no mercy or things that happening like that. They wanted the world does not need a lot of people. All we need is a few strong people in the world, no weaklings. And every person was called, with the Germans called Lebensraum, right? We need a place to live. The cruelty of that time was tremendous. To the extent that in times of Enish, the world flooded. Hashem brought the world water to cover 1/3 of the world to show that Hashem was upset. It says even when the rain started to come down, the evil ones, they took their children and they tried stuffing their children to stop all the water from below, from the streams from coming up. They used to breed animals with animals of not of the same type and animals with humans, etc. There was, if and any law which was upheld, they would always find a way around it. For example, it says before the Mabul, or if somebody had a pot, a basket full of peas, every pea is worth, I don't know, half a penny. So if somebody would steal it, they would have to pay it back, or they get punished, or get killed, whatever, as a punishment. Thousands of people will come, and each one would steal one pea, and each one would say, when they come to a judge, "Oh, I saw something worth less than a pruta, less than a penny. I don't have to pay back." In halacha, there's something called a mishapara. Someone does not keep their word. They have to, and Bezdin could, one of the things they could do is make them hold a Sefer Torah and make them say out loud, mishapara, the one who punished the generation of the Mabul, of the flood, should punish the one who is saying falsehood and has something that belongs to their fellow. The sins of the generation of the flood were very strong. Hashem sent Noach to warn them, Mr. Shelach's great-grandfather, to warn them, and to do teshuvah, and there's nobody home, nobody to listen. And the people thought, we're so big, we're so tall, we're so strong, nothing could destroy us, so we're not scared of punishment. It says in the Zohar, and actually it's a beautiful explanation from the Rebbe's father and the Rebbe on the Zohar, we won't get into it now. Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi Rebbe, they're walking together, and they came to a very tall mountain. And they found among the mountains the bones of the people of the generation of the Mabul, of the flood. And they saw how much they had to walk. Their bones were so long that they walk very, very long. It says about 300 steps, to walk along the bones of one person. And they said, now we understand what it means that we're not scared of Hashem. They thought that with their feet they could close up any floods that are going to go on. They thought, we are so tall, we'll go to the top, we'll go over the mountains, and the waters can't flood us. Hashem caused very hot springs to come out, and they were not able. And they all died over there. Hashem made the flood waters go 15 amos, 30 feet over the tops of the mountains. They had received so much goodness from Hashem in those days that they were ungrateful for all the goodness that they were receiving. And there were 180 years that different tzaddikim of that time were telling the people, do teshuvah, return to Hashem. And unfortunately, nobody actually did teshuvah throughout that time. Can you imagine? Think of the most untalented person in the world, and it becomes a shliach, let's say, somewhere. For 120 years, they're a shliach trying to do one goal, and not have one Baal Tshuva over a course of 120 years from the entire earth. Noach, with his son Chaim, it says, built the Noach the Teva for 120 years, and not even one other person besides for their family joined them on the Teva. Can you imagine that? Not one Baal Tshuva. Chassidus talks about the idea of what's called a tzaddik in pelts. There's a tzaddik who puts on a nice fur-lined coat. There are two ways a person could be warm in cold weather. One is to wear a warm coat, and one is to build a fire that makes heat. The first way makes warmth only for yourself. The second way makes warmth for others as well. A tzaddik in pelts is a tzaddik who's out for his own good, to help himself, and allowing others to go to the doom. And this is what they say about the term for Noach. This entire sikh over here, the Rebbe sort of turns it on the head, and to say something negative about Noach. The fact that Noach, it says Noach did not daven for his generation, wasn't a chisaron, wasn't something negative in Noach. It wasn't possible for him to daven for his generation. We just spoke about how corrupt that generation was. And you could say Moshe Rabbeinu davened for the Jews who served the golden calf later on. Moshe Rabbeinu davened in the merit of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the merit of the fathers. Noach did not have any fathers to fall back, daven for them in the merit of the fathers of these people. Avram Avinu tried to daven for Sodom, but he wasn't successful because they didn't have any schus of his merits of fathers, merits of our ancestors. So Noach did not have any. The people were so corrupt, the earth was corrupt, and if he would have davened for them, it wouldn't have helped. And this that it says he was a tzaddik in his generation, and one of the Zerav and Shmuel once says that it's saying that something negative, that he should have davened for his generation. Instead, he didn't daven for them. Instead, he built a teva to save himself. He's saying that Noach and his not necessarily did anything wrong. Later generations, compared to later generations, like Avram's generation, he was not considered to be a tzaddik, because in later generations, when you see chas v'shalom, God forbid, someone's going to be punished, something wrong, you have to do everything you could to help them, to elevate them, to die. And if that doesn't help, do what Moshe Rabbeinu did, daven for them. Do what Avram did for Sodom and the 5 cities. He davened for them, he prayed for them. I'm going to read just one part at the end. You can read the introduction, which talks a little bit about it. And let's go to paragraph 8 over here. Yeduim divrei hashalah. It's known the words of the Shalah, Shai Levi Horowitz, ancestor of Dovi, and me, cousin, but he's my ancestor as well. He says that there's many wondrous teachings contained in the Rashi and the Torah. And one of the wondrous teachings says that the earth became dry after the Mabul. The Mabul is, many times it's called Boyal Teva. Teva means an ark. Come into the ark, Hashem told Noach, but he also told him an ark, Teva in Hebrew means
box.
A box, and what else does it mean?
A letter.
A letter, exactly. Come into the letters. Come into the letters of the Torah. There's a big world out there. And this world, many times, as we're learning in Kunter Semayin, and as we see clearly in the street, is not very conducive to keeping one's faith in Hashem. And it could be very mocking sometimes. It could be very difficult. Especially, we could feel like we're drowning in the waters. What's the waters? The Maimer of the Alter Rebbe in this week. Mayim Rabim, the many waters, is Tirdas HaParnasa, the troubles it takes to earn a living, which occupies us day and night and takes away many of our concentration in earning a living and learning Torah and davening. Hashem says, Boy elateva, come into the ark, come into the letters. Just enter the letters of the Torah, learn Torah. That's the best vaccine against the world. Do you want to overpower the world? You want to survive, not just survive, but thrive. And it says the earth becomes dry. To remove all the floodwaters which are threatening to submerge us, that's Boyal Teva, through coming into the ark. And the earth became dry, he says, Kil Chasa. Learning Torah, halacha of the Torah, the laws of the Torah, that's what causes a person to go above the world. And number 9. We're coming out of the month of Tishrei. Tishrei, Parshas Noach, is always the first parsha read in the month of Cheshvan. Parshas Bereshis is always read the last parsha in the month of Tishrei. Tishrei is a month full of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, 10 days of Tshuva, Sukkot, Simchas Torah, joy, happiness, inspiration, holiness. We could forget about the world through the month of Tishrei. And we're occupied during the month of Tishrei. Where's my lulav? Where's my esrog? My sukkah? We're occupied with holy, great things, and tzedakah, so many good things in the month of Tishrei. Now, we're in the month of Cheshvan. The Mabul, the rain, the flood started in the month of Cheshvan. And it's called Mar Cheshvan, bitter Cheshvan, because of the Mabul which started in that month. We leave the month of Tishrei and we enter the month of Cheshvan. Cheshvan is not a single Yom Tov, not a single holiday. I mean, it's Chav Cheshvan, like Hasidic holidays, but not a single holiday. And you could think, I'm coming from a month full of Yom Tov, we have to wait till Kislev for Hanukkah. But no Yom Tov in the month of Cheshvan at all. Because it's not just a month to recover from your hangover from some Torah. You don't need a month for that. But it's rather a month to internalize and bring in everything, to unpack all the packages which are happening for the month of Tishrei, and to bring it into day-to-day, the grind of daily life. When the world will be full of Hashem's glory and Hashem's light. Baal Shem Tov explained a pasuk in Tehillim. It says in chapter 23 of Tehillim, Hashem tzilcha. Hashem is your shadow. What is a shadow? Shadow means that whenever you move, the shadow moves together with you. It mirrors whatever you do. And it corresponds to the movement of the person who is moving. Hashem acts towards man the way the man acts. The way he acts in general by himself and the way he acts towards others. So a person who's a very rough and stern person, Hashem will judge them sternly. A person who is a merciful person, Hashem will judge them mercifully. This is Rabbi Torsky brings us down the story we learned yesterday in Gemara about Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, that he had 13 years, we learned 2 days ago, of suffering because he did not show compassion for an animal. There was a calf that was going to be shechted, be slaughtered, and it was hiding its face in Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi's garment. And he told him, go, this is what you're created for. And because he was not showing enough compassion for the animal, he suffered for 13 years. And the suffering continued until the one time, the Rabbi, the maidservant in the house of Rabbi, the linguist, the one who had a very good taste and a very talented in her comments and what she would say to people. And Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi's maidservant was sweeping the house, and there was a nest of baby weasels, and she wanted to sweep it away and get rid of it. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi told her, stop. Hashem's mercies and all of his creatures, as we say in Ashrei, and then all of his sufferings left after that, by having mercy on others. So if you have the son, so Hashem mirrors him because he had mercy on creatures. Hashem had mercy on him and took away all of his suffering. Noach is in a similar way. Before the Mabul, he did not daven for the generation. He did not say, Hashem, please save this generation, although they're very wicked. Like Avraham Avinu did later on with Sodom, like Moshe did for the Jews by the Egel. Instead, he did not ask for mercy. He built an ark for his own family. And the worth was destroyed. And it says Hashem was in the ark. But it says at one point, Vayiskar Elokim es Noach. Hashem remembered Noach. Because in the Teva, on the ark, it says he did not sleep day and night. He was busy taking care of all the animals, cleaning up after them, feeding them. The Medrash says at one time he was late to feed the lion, and the lion kicked him. And he was busy nonstop taking care of the needs of creatures, showing kindness to others, being altruistic. It says, Rashi says, he was coughing up blood from the amount of stress and effort he was taking to do. However, once Noach showed compassion to creatures, then Hashem remembered Noach. So when we think that we're behaving to someone else, or being nice and kind to someone else and considerate, truth is we are the biggest recipients, the biggest beneficiaries of our own kindness. If you're being kind to someone else, you end up being the biggest recipient back. This explains that the Chassidus explains that when Noach was in the ark in the Teva, was actually a very special time, very special moment. It says at that time, all the orbits, the sun and the moon, everything stopped. The earth was in mourning. And however, can you imagine? You go to, there's a meme going around. San Diego Zoo is hundreds of acres, and they only have 3,500 types of animals.
Mm-hmm.
And Noach's Teva had much more than that in such a small area. Yeah, of course. If you're trying to explain it naturally, it wasn't natural, impossible to be natural.
There was a miracle.
It was obviously a miracle. And to try rationalizing it, you can rationalize it from today till tomorrow. You're going to have to eventually, at one point, agree that it's only a miracle could do such a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But all the animals were not fighting with each other. The lion is there, sheep are there. Might have been pens, but I'm sure the mosquitoes were going around. And if a mosquito probably bit bit the giraffe, and the giraffe didn't eat it. Can you imagine that thousands of animals in the Teva, they're all on one floor of the Teva. So they weren't spread out over 3 floors. So in an area by, let's say, 500 feet by 75 feet or 80 feet, not a very large area, and you have all the animals of the world, 2 of them, and the kosher animals, 7 of them, over there. And nobody's fighting with each other, nobody's harming each other. That itself is a miracle beyond the miracle. I was watching now to just go on a little bit of a lighter note, two things in this week's Parsha. It says Noach was the first environmentalist. It says, why do you think so? It says because there are 3 floors in the Teva. So what he's doing with the bottom floor? The waste, right? That's where all the waste of the animals went. So what do you think Noah's going to do with it? He's making a big compost, right? So he's a first environmentalist. But if you actually look at the end of this week's Parsha, you can see exactly the opposite. The end of this week's Parsha, it talks about the generation of the Dor HaFlaga, the generation of the ones who built the Tower of Babel, very tall tower. Rabbi Yonis and Eibschitz, he lived in the times of the Magen Mizrich and lived of the Alter Rebbe, sent to the Magen Mizrich. Rabbi Yonis and Eibschitz, a Rav in Altoona, not Altoona, Pennsylvania, but the original Altoona. He actually writes the reason why they built such a tall tower. So he lived in the 1700s. He says because, and this obviously takes someone of the caliber of genius of Rabbi Yonis and Eibschitz to say this, is that generation of the flood, they wanted to leave the gravitational pull of this world. They wanted to, because they know that outside of this world, you could be weightless. How did they know that? They had different chachma, different wisdoms that were lost, and Baruch Hashem, we're slowly discovering them again. So they wanted to build a very tall tower to leave, we call it the chalal, the atmosphere of the world. They should be weightless, and then over there, they could fly around and fight against Hashem. Never mind, Hashem was a physical being you could fight against. The many different nations all built this big tall tower, Tower of Babel. Now, one of the Pirushim, one of the reasons they built a tower, it says, is because they held that once every 1,656 years, the heavens collapse and a flood happens. Because that's what happened after 1,656 years of creation. There was a big flood, a Mabul, which destroyed the world. True, they heard that there's a promise, Hashem says, I will never destroy the world again. They didn't believe that. So they said, we're going to build supports for the heavens. We're going to build beams to support the heavens. And they had a plan to build 3 different tall towers to support the shrine, support the heavens. And obviously, we know what happened at the end of those week's Parsha. Hashem, besides for destroying the tower, but Hashem did, many of them, people, the Medrash, what happened to all of them, 1/3 died, 1/3 were changed into Shadim and other creatures, and 1/3 Hashem dispersed all over the world and changed their language around. And that's why it's all these different languages. Until then, everyone would speak just one language, meaning Lashon Kodesh, the holy tongue. Their mistake was saying Hashem cannot take care of the world. Hashem needs our help to make the world exist, to regulate the world. Meaning Hashem does not know what he's doing in the world. The earth, according to our calculations, according to our most advanced science of their day, the heavens are going to collapse. There's going to be a big flood. Sounds familiar? Many scientists in our day say, according to our data, the way that the world is going right now, there's going to be a big flood again.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they're saying.
Every 10 years, actually.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
They have a date too. They had a date every 1,656 years.
Yeah.
They have a date, I'm sure, as well.
Mm-hmm. Because every 10 years they say, oh, another 10 years, the earth will be destroyed. They have nowadays.
Correct. In essence, it's the exact same kind of what the exact same thing that the generation of Dera Flaga, the generation of the Tower of Babel was saying, that it's saying they don't have a belief in Hashem. Hashem cannot take care of the world. Hashem made the world and he doesn't know what to do. And therefore, we're going to put in place a system to save the world, to save the heavens from, and to make sure such a flood doesn't happen again. Now, such a thing is obviously not just a kofer baker, God forbid, denying the existence and the capabilities of Hashem, but you see what happened to that generation as well. Hashem said this generation is not a generation which is worthy of being around. Although Hashem did not destroy them like the generation of the flood, because at least they got along with each other. They weren't stealing and robbing from each other, pillaging each other, at least on the scale that was being done earlier, at least on a previous scale. So that's in the generation of the Dar HaFlaga. But inside the Mabul, inside the Teva, inside the Ark, during the Mabul, there was such a great godliness that the animals are not fighting with each other. It's like at times of Mashiach. You have so much light shining, so much holiness shining, there's nothing what to fight about. You have two officers squabbling, they're petty squabbles, and they come in front of the king, they're quiet. They're on in front of the greatness of the king. And in the Teva, it was shining the light which will be in the future. When Mashiach comes, the wolf will lie with the lamb, the child will play with the serpent, everything. There will be no animals will not harm in my entire mountain. The earth will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem, as the earth covers, as the water covers the earth, as the water covers the sea. At that point, the water covered the entire earth in the times of Noach. The water, which is a hidden secret of a Torah, which is hidden underwater, was over the entire earth. And in the Teva, you had the light of Mashiach already shining. So in a big way, Noach did not want to leave the Teva. He was happy to stay in the Teva. Everything is great. Hashem had to tell him, say mina Teva, Noach, you might enjoy being here in the Teva. You're living in such an exalted life. However, you should know there's a mission. The mission is not to stay over here. Leave the Teva, to go out from the place where you're comfortable. Don't think that even though the Teva was cramped and they didn't have a natural habitat for all the creatures in the world, no one wanted to leave the Teva. You could explain it in a negative way, saying that some people, say an addict, they want to stay where they are as an addict. They don't want to recover because it takes effort to recover. Some people don't want to do any changes in their life, but they'd rather live a very low life. And this is true even if it takes a lot of effort. Some of the animals in the Teva were similar. They could say they're only in the Teva was just the best protection for them. There's always food already for them. They don't have to hunt. They're not outside in the rain. We don't want to leave, but you can say in a positive way. We have such greatness over here. The light of Mashiach is right now going on in the Teva. Why should you ever want to go out? And Hashem says, say in a Teva, go out from the Teva. And as you said, the word Teva means the words of Torah. You have to learn Torah day and night. You can't stop over there. There's times when Hashem tells us you have a mission. Say min hateva. Leave the words of Torah Go out to the world and share your Torah you have with the rest of the world. Hashem told them, Pru'urvu, multiply, become great. That was your mission. Don't be content with where you are. Make another chassan, make another Jew. You have a mission which is far more important and far greater. Even if you have the greatest revelations of godliness in the Teva, however, we have a mission. It's what Hashem wants us to go out and to elevate the world, to work in the world, and find the good in every single thing in the world. So, Mr. Hashem, we will see the good in the world. We shouldn't have to wait too long. We shouldn't have to only have bitachon, belief, and trust that everything is for the good. We should actually see the good. And, Hashem is Kol Yachal. Hashem could do anything. And even if, God forbid, someone is sick and they need an operation, and God forbid, if Jewish people need an operation, still Hashem can make someone better without an operation as well, without suffering. So Hashem could get the same goal because Hashem is a Kol Yachal. Hashem can do anything, and therefore Hashem should send us this Shabbos and many other Shabbosim many simchas and happiness. And just like in the Teva, there were miracles. We should have many miracles, open miracles, revealed miracles. Shkoyach, thank you for